Stories in York, Part 13. 7th of April 1739, the execution of Highwayman Dick Turpin. Richard Turpin was born in 1705 in Essex. He grew up to become a butcher, but dissatisfied with that life, he fell in with the Gregory gang, a nasty bunch of rogues who terrorised the Essex county. They would loot churches, raid homes, and brutally attack the occupants. There's even an account that they attacked an elderly widow living on a farm. They roasted her naked bottom over the fire until she would give up the whereabouts of her valuables. One by one, the gang members were captured and sent to the gallows in London. But Turpin managed to escape, and teaming up with a Tom King, the two of them embarked on their career as highwaymen, attacking any lonely traveller on the country roads. Their reputation was notorious. One day, their partnership ended when Turpin, accidentally on purpose some say, shot King. Now wanted for the crime of murder, he fled Essex and travelled up north to Lincolnshire and Beverley. To hide his identity, he changed his name to John Palmer. But he couldn't quite change his criminal ways and very quickly took up horse stealing. One day, in Beverley, he was arrested for a very minor offence of shooting a chicken, but he was recognised for being a horse thief, a capital offence, and was brought to the York prison. There, his true identity was discovered by pure accident, and he was brought before the magistrates and convicted of the crime of 2 counts of horse stealing. Despite being known as a highwayman and murderer, that was his conviction that would take him to the gallows on the York racecourse. Just before his execution, he bought himself a new suit, an expensive pair of shoes, and even paid for 5 mourners to walk behind his coffin. On the 7th of April 1739, Turpin was taken from the condemned man's cell and paraded through the streets in an open horse and cart atop his own coffin. When he was brought before the crowds, they jeered and cheered this highwayman. His executioner would be a Thomas Hadfield, a fellow convicted highway robber himself, now pardoned, given the task to execute others. It was said that the two of them talked for around about 30 minutes before Turpin showed any sign of nervousness as his right leg began to tremble. The noose was placed about his neck and he began to climb up the ladder of the gallows. When he reached the top, he looked about him and leapt from the ladder, breaking his neck and dying straight away. At 3 p.m, his body was cut down and placed on display at the Blue Boar Inn within the city walls. The following day, he was buried here at the churchyard of St. George's. But he wouldn't be at peace for long, because body snatchers dug up his body and sold it to a local physician to dissect. When the mob heard about this, they stormed upon the doctor's door and demanded the return of the body. It was reburied in a secret location and covered with quicklime to prevent the body being stolen again. And so in death the legends grew. Most of what we know of Dick Turpin comes from the fantasy of the novelist William Harrison Ainsworth, who in 1834 published his book Rookwood, plucking the name of Turpin from obscurity and giving him the dashing highwayman character that women would swoon over. He didn't have a horse called Black Bess. He didn't do the infamous ride from London to York in a day, and he certainly wasn't dashing. Turpin was 5'9", stockily built, and was badly scarred by smallpox. He wasn't even known as Dick in his lifetime, but instead chose his full name of Richard. Turpin was nothing more than a lowlife, brutal and violent to the end. He would see his timely death at the gallows at York.